Hi, and welcome back to the Gift of Gab podcast. This is your host, Gabby, connecting you to the highest and flyest in the Mile High City. Today, I have Charlie Hempseed with me.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fabulous. It is almost 4:20. I'm headed to Red Rocks. We are here at Jazz. We just ripped the gravity bong.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
I think this year is fixing to be my favorite 420 ever.
Fuck yeah.
So
it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
You deserve it.
Exactly. I'm turning 33 this year. Those repeating numbers I was just talking about.
Right on.
I'm excited. So, yeah, tell me a little bit more about yourself and who you are. And
yeah, man, my name's Charlie. I grew up in South Dakota, and I kind of got dubbed Charlie Hempseed because we'd get these old Mexican brick packs, and I'd grip the seeds out of them, and I'd go grow them, and then they'd get up to be like chest high, and I'd be so afraid that the cops were watching them, so I'd just run away, and I'd never go back to them. But I'd always go and start new ones. And then one day, one of my friends was like, dude, you're like the Johnny Appleseed of weed. And that's just kind of how I got my nickname. So yeah, man, I just turned 34 this year. April baby. I noticed a lot of Aries kids smoke weed. So have you noticed that too?
Yeah, my dad's an Aries. His birthday's April 8th. So
cool, yeah.
So my sister's is April 12th. So
we're like fiery. We're charged. Like we got to have something to mellow us out, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I have to have it too. I'm a Taurus, so I'm an Earth baby, and I mean it comes from the Earth. So.
Right. Yeah.
I used to say, "What are you guys talking about? Money does grow on trees. Like so many things. So many things that we have are because of plants.
Yeah. Well,
they grow.
The basis of everything is a plant.
Exactly.
And I'm like one of those weird people that I'm into all plants, like trees. I'll be staring at tree burls in the distance, and definitely going around landscapes in this time of the year, noticing like the hyacinths are blooming, the tulips are blooming, they're just bud breaks on the trees. I was just filming some an ash tree out there by Barnes and Noble on the other side of town. And some lady was fucking staring at me out of her car, like, what's this guy doing? And I'm here holding the tree branch with my phone, making a video, and I love all plants. So.
Yeah, me too. I love to be outside. That's why I love springtime. I love 420 so much because the world is coming back alive. It's starting to be nice outside. I mean, in Colorado sometimes, I mean, you're from somewhere even colder, so I can't even imagine. Like, I haven't really been to South Dakota. Maybe I haven't never been.
Yeah.
I've been a lot of places, but only in drive-through because I've driven to Pittsburgh several times in my life because my stepmother is from there. And I've driven all the way to Florida before, and I've driven all the way to Utah or Vegas. So, I've done those drives, and I've been up to Montana and Oregon and Washington. But never that way. Like, what would I be doing over there?
Well, I mean, it sounds like you've kind of probably passed through. If you went to Pittsburgh, you maybe blazed through South Dakota.
And yeah, I
or
could have.
Like Nebraska.
We usually went Nebraska or Kansas way, and then up through that way. But
I mean,
my dad used to love to drive through Montana because Montana used to not have a speed limit. So he was like, that's the best place. When I was little, that's all I remembered. And I was just asleep in the back under a blanket because he hates to be hot. So he would have us freezing in the back of the AC. So
yeah. Years of the drug war have got me paranoid. I'm an old man driver, so like I'll set my cruise control at the speed limit and just go.
Yeah, me too. I drive pretty safe. Right the year they legalized here in Colorado, I drove to Pittsburgh, and I was trying to bring weed. I had my med card. I was 19.
Yeah.
I was like trying to bring my dad. He was like, I'm missing out on all of it. He was living in Pittsburgh at the time with my stepmother, and he was like, I'm missing out on all of the greatness. So I had this jar. And this jar had a bunch of the best nugs. You know what I'm saying? It was like one of those, you buy at the smoke shop glass with like Bob Marley on the front or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I got pulled over like so many times on that drive, and then I stopped in Chicago, and I was so mad because I stopped in Chicago, and I still had a ways to go. So, and this little ounce I bought like smelled so loud, like it was ridiculous. And I picked it up in Chicago, and it came from me in Fort Collins via somebody I knew. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I got it. And I had to pay double. But it's just how the cookie crumbles. I'm not in my place,
Yeah.
And I put it outside near the gas tank, but it didn't smell like gas at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like so scared, and we didn't get pulled over for the rest of the drive there, but literally right when we got into Nebraska, like we were in Lincoln, they pulled us over.
Yep.
They're like, "What are you doing?" It smells like weed. I was like, "I have a med card." They're like, "Get in my car. We're searching your car." And I had my little son, and it was so funny because we were on spring break going to see my dad, and he gets back to school, and he tells him, he's like, "My mama," they were like, "What was your spring break like?" And he was like, "I got to be in a cop car."
Oh,
he told his whole class. Because they gave him a teddy bear and everything. You know how Nebraska is about them corner huskers.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So it was a cool experience, but everywhere I went, they were like, "We saw that documentary." And I went home and watched the documentary because I was like, what is this documentary that you speak of? And they show people just walking around in the street, shooting up drugs. And I was like, that's not what's going on here, but that's how they depicted it. And I was like, no wonder they kept pulling me over in every single state.
Yeah.
So on the way back home, I literally had 2 joints for a 24-hour drive and a little glass of, we were calling it moon juice, but it was like moonshine, apple juice, something like that his neighbor would drop off in his mailbox for him. And we got pulled over right when we hit the West Virginia border. And I had to swallow. I ate the 2 joints dry. I ate them and I chugged it with the moonshine because I wasn't the driver. I was in the passenger seat, so I had to take one for the team. And it was so dry. I was like trying to swallow it while we're getting pulled over because I am not about to go through this again. I don't know what the laws are there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nebraska, at least I have family from Nebraska. My mother is from Nebraska, so I know about what's going on there. And
maybe
I ate
come
it,
help.
and I was cool while we got pulled over. And I actually told him, I was like, I'm about to call my uncle because he works for the police, like, academy or whatever. Or he went, like, to whatever. And I'm about to tell them that you are harassing me for my Colorado plates. There's nothing in my car. It does not smell like marijuana in here. And I was like, and you better leave me alone. Sure. And they left me alone. And about 30 minutes later, I was out. I was so fucked up from ingesting 2 joints and drinking a whole cup.
Bet, yeah.
It was ridiculous, but, I took him for the team. It was cool.
I did what I had to do. I'm a ride or die.
So tell me more about what brought you out here to the Jad's Cannabis Bar for us to meet in the first place and what you do.
Yeah, well, last time I was out here, I met Brandon from Chiba Chews, so shout out to Chiba Chews. They were nice enough to get me through there, and while I was meeting them here, I met you. Mm-hmm. And, dude, awesome experience here. If you guys have never been to Jad's Smoke Lounge, this is the nation's first smoke lounge where you can come and legally consume cannabis, and, man, it's freaking sweet, right? Or maybe, is it the nation's first, or is it Colorado?
I thought when I started working here, I think it's the first one like this where you can smoke, like, and sell it too, legally.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I mean, there's people doing various things, like selling forums, like Delta and different things, but, I mean, this is the first place like this.
Yeah.
And it's definitely the only one like this in Colorado.
Cool. Yeah, and I went to the S3HQ 303 event afterwards, and I kind of came back to the same thing. They do like a VIP bag, and in that VIP bag, it was really cool. A lot of really awesome products came inside of it, and then it was like I didn't have to go shopping at a dispensary I got like a grab bag full of different products, and
Yeah.
it was sweet.
So that's how the bingo that we're doing on 420 here. It's like drag bingo. So the one that hosts it is a manager at a dispensary. So
Oh, right.
you get your ticket, and you don't get that grab bag here. You just you get your limits. How we work at Jad's, like a bar,
Right.
a venue. You play bingo, you get awesome prizes, and then you go pick up your bag at the dispensaries. And they say there's some pretty great bags. So
yeah. It was fun. It was also like it's like this. It's a social event where you can go and smoke and be with like-minded people and network. And I really want to try to take that back to South Dakota because it's a medical program there, and there's a lot of like plus 60-year-olds that are smoking for the first time. Maybe they've never done a dab before, and I'm like, okay, this would be a cool opportunity for me to be like, how can I teach them not only how to use these products, what the products are about. Right now in South Dakota, a gram of dab is $90. So, and if you don't know,
here a half gram being like 40-50 bucks isn't. I mean, that's pretty fair to what's going on there, and we provide everything you need to smoke it. But what I like about the model that we have having this social cannabis is that you can try it one dab at a time to find out, do I even like a gravity bong hit?
right?
Do I even like dabs, or do I like that type of dab? Oh, cool. You can try it out in a safe environment where people can help you come down. They can give you CBDs. They can give you different things to food to help you come down, and then make sure you safely get out of here. It's similar to how you would do it with alcohol, but it takes way less time, and it's way more like comfortable and easy to manage as from a business standpoint as well.
Sure, yeah. I think also too, what you had said earlier, or something is like you hit somebody up with the gravity bong right away, they're not going to buy anything else, And
it's true.
Yeah,
and the reason is because it tears you up. Like some people just have to leave after that. I always tell people to do it on their way out, like, or if they're going to the airport. I mean, if you're here all the time, you can do it. I know you. But if you're new, do you even want to do that? Or do you want to see how they do on dabs,
And that's like where I think I would be cool to bring that kind of back to South Dakota. To these people who maybe have never had the chance to take a dab before, they don't want to buy a rig. Do I want to get into so much before even trying a dab for the first time?
I know it costs so much money, and that's why I didn't used to dab very much.
Mm-hmm.
I just smoked blunts because while dabbing's cool, if you have children, eventually they're going to be teenagers and they're going to be seeking things out. And dabs are pretty extreme. They're probably not going to be doing very well in school if they're taking dabs in high school.
Yeah.
I took my first knife hit at the very end of high school, and I literally left the room. Like, I left this guy. Like, I had never met him. He helped me out when I ran out of gas. And, like, he's like, do you smoke? And I was like, yeah. He was like, okay, I'm about to get off. Let's smoke. So I was young. I was like, cool, let's do this. He was not that much older than me, so it wasn't, like, weird. But we get there, and he's like, have you ever done a knife hit? And I'm like, no, what is that? I'm like, he shows it to me. I'm like, I don't do drugs. I only smoke weed, I told him. And he was like, oh, this is weed. It's like, what did he call it? Bubble hash is what he called it. And I was like, oh, okay. Even though I should have asked more questions because it was black substance. But anyways, it was weed. Now I know. But he was like heating up knives on the stove because this was in like the early 2000s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool. And he does it first. All right, cool. He blows out a cloud of smoke. Back to normal. I'm like, okay, cool.
He's acting normal.
And I do it, and I like just smoke weed at the time. And the only real hookup I have at this point in my life is my friend that sells me swag. So like, I'm getting it for my budget at the time, at a great price for what I'm getting, so I can always smoke. And that's what I like is consistency. I want to be able to have my all the time. So,
That's what I like is consistency.
And he goes to the bathroom after I do mine, and I start to feel super high because I've never done something like that before. And I looked around and I was like, wait, he's in the bathroom? Cool, I'm out of here. And I just walked out this front door. And I didn't go back to that gas station for years. I was like, not gonna. And honestly, I probably wouldn't even remember what he looked like.
Yeah,
That's how dumb you are when you're young. Younger kids listening to this don't do those things.
Yeah, I definitely was hitting knife hits when I was in high school, and we'd get it like globs of resin and do like the resin, which is just
So
disgusting.
yeah, well, I used to scrape my pipe and like smoke it, and smoke out of some pretty weird things.
Yeah.
To make it work. Because when my mom would find my pieces, she would break them and she would give them back to us inside of a bag, like broken, so that we had to like look at it.
Well,
like, Mom, you suck. And it wouldn't be like we could scrape it clean or anything. Like, no.
no. In South Dakota, glass was coveted. You couldn't get glass. It was illegal until like 2 years ago. So people would make runs down here for glass, and then they'd come home and like, I got a bong, I got a piece, I got a spoon, you know, and like all of a sudden that glass sold out in like minutes. Mm-hmm. So it was like they were almost like glass dealers, you know, and there were people doing runs just for glass down there, which is, so then if you had a bowl, you know, you named it, it was like part of your family, it went with you everywhere. And
so
like,
I had one that I got in a pretty like shady way. It was acquired by taking it from somebody else. It was so cool. It had Bob Marley in the bubble, and I was a young, dumb kid. And, like, it was part of a collective of things that a group of us took. Like, it wasn't like I just, like, knew this person and took their pipe or anything. But either way, it was a shady way I got it. But I was working at Chuck E. Cheese at the time. And my friends were at the house, like, being all sneaky because we're all kids and we're not allowed to smoke weed. And they're, like, scraping the pipe. And actually where I lived, the parents were on parole, so we really couldn't, like, have weed in their house, but we did. And I get back, and I'm like, guys, load up, let's smoke. I'm off work. I'm like, what is going on with you guys? Where's Bob? Because it had Bob Marley on the little thing, and I'm obsessed. And they're like, oh, about that. Like, you know, you said we could hit it, like the resin in it. We could just hit it, you know? I was like, yeah, and? They were like, well, we wanted to kind of try to scrape it because it seemed like there was a lot in there. And it broke. I was like, damn, you guys broke my... While I was at work? Like, you guys didn't just text me right away?
Dude, that's so funny.
And they were like, well...
You didn't text me about my broken pipe right away, my baby?
They were the same ones that I acquired this pipe with. And they were like, they threw it right back at me, and they were like, well, I mean, maybe. And I was like, oh, well, touche. I'm not... And after that, I didn't leave it there. I would always just... take it with me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But then I was in beauty school several years later, and I literally got called into the office like I was in high school. And they were like, we got a complaint that you smell like weed. I didn't have a driver's license at the time, so my sister had to drop me off at school in my car and then take it and do whatever, you know, all day, and come pick me back up, so I wasn't going to leave my weed or pipe in there. Yeah. So I did smell like weed, and I had a med card, so I'm not smoking. I'm in school. I'm in hair school, though, you know, like beauty school. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I do have the weed on me. I have a med card, and I don't have the license, and I don't know when I'm going to be back home tonight. Yeah, it's in my purse. Here you go. And I set it out right out there. They're like, we're going to have to suspend you, blah, 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 for this amount of time.
This is drugs. This is narcotics. You know,
I was like, damn.
You were a criminal.
But this was in 2009, like before, I mean, right as it was like medically, but they would let you open medical dispensaries and then close them down. And then they would let you open it, and then change their mind in that county, and they would close it down. So like we've come a long way to like 2023.
Yeah. So I got separated out of the Marine Corps on April 10th in 2010 for testing positive for weed. And during that time, I had a medical card in California, and that was kind of the same thing. Like, well, I got into growing it out there, and then it was like I was riding a train one day in San Diego, and this kid had a backpack on him, and I was starting to talk to him, and he was asking me if I needed any weed, and he had a whole backpack full of weed. And I was like, dude, what are you doing with all this? And he's like, I'm just taking it around to dispensaries trying to sell it. Because that's what the game there was. You could sell to the dispensaries, and they would just put it on the shelf. So and then that's what I kind of started doing. I went to Oaksterdam University for medical marijuana. And I mean, when you're talking about smelling like weed, I actually lived here in Colorado. I was here for 5 years, and I did hemp harvesting on the western side of the state. Mm-hmm. And we would go harvest hemp fields all day, and then like getting into gas stations or something afterwards was gnarly. People would be like, "What the fuck?"
So I used to trim. Like that's why I tell people when I say this is my first job in the industry. Yeah. This is my first MED job. Like, sure. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the first place that I've worked where we're paying taxes on this. Like, but I have definitely worked with the plant for a long time. That is the only part of this industry that I'm interested in is like learning and having resources to learn how to grow really well. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm interested in because I would rather be able to sustain my own lifestyle. I don't care about selling it. I don't want to sell my weed that I'm growing like a baby at my house. Right. I want to smoke it.
Exactly.
I don't want to have a bunch that I'm going to be drawing attention and have huge electricity bills.
Right.
No. I want a garden. Like,
you're on it. That's what I do.
I'm allowed to do that, you know? So a lot of people just don't. They have different priorities. You know what I'm saying? And that is the only part about the legalization and the new age that I don't like as much is the underground is now heavily kind of regulated almost, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody's getting their weed regulated now, you know what I'm saying? And the quality is way down here on the actual flower. Now the other products, like what we just did out of that gravity bong, like those are up here, you know, but the actual quality of a lot of the flour is down here.
Yeah, I would agree that if you get into growers, you start knowing growers here, you know, homegrown flour, people who grow their flour outside of a center or a facility, they're all, you know, way better. And it's really weird because, you know, now because of the black markets in other states like South Dakota or Nebraska, Wyoming, people have created branded black market product here that's almost better than the stuff that you can get in the stores.
I know. And you see people with it, and that's why now the people that are like, I'm trying to be an influencer, and I am just consuming. Why? And I am just trying to like get brands to want to maybe sponsor me or see what I'm doing. Like, why is this so hard? It's because we're not actually federally or worldwide, like internationally, allowed to be smoking. Like there are still places in the world where you can be like
put to prison for life for it.
Yes, for like die in prison for weed. Like still, and that's why I always caution people when they think like, I do inside of the United States. Yeah, you can take your own weed pen when you travel sometimes, you know what I'm saying? You can get away with it, but there is not, you do not want to travel to another country without knowing what it is because it's not, and the internet is an international thing and a federal thing. Like it's there, so you have to abide by those laws. And when you guys think you're influencing, showing these people's regulated products, the internet doesn't know the difference between that and these fake or mirrored products.
Right, yeah.
And people as consumers don't know the difference between, they don't know anything about where it's coming from either. So they don't know what they're smoking either, you know.
Well, and shout out to the government here if you're ever listening to this, because this is the problem that you've created. Like here in this state where there's people who are so passionate about what they do and they actually make product that's better than some of the people who are in the dispensaries.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I've heard that recently a kid died in Rapid City from some black market dab.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no regulation on the black market, so they can do whatever they want,
Mm-hmm.
and who knows what they're lacing it up with.
Mm-hmm.
So some people out here on the black market have a good intention, and some people don't. And this is very same to be true in like a regulated market.
I think it comes down to education, and I think I think the government and a lot of people paint a picture like they have done their part to educate their children, or they've done their part to give back to the education systems to educate their kids.
Yeah.
But actually, the education systems don't actually teach you about much. They tell you not to do any of it. And if you know anything about human behavior and how children developmentally are working, if you just tell them not to do anything, then they're going to listen to people on the streets that could be good people trying to guide them, or they could be people with bad intentions trying to make money or exploit them,
Yeah.
So that's what you guys are doing by not really educating and teaching kids, or allowing us across the board to be able to grow these things, have these things tested, know where you're getting these things, but they don't even care about it with our food. So unfortunately, I don't think it's really going to get to that point, because with our food, it's the same thing. It's about money. And here in Colorado, you can get these licenses. You can do these things if you jump through all their hoops. But if you don't, you can't. And then that creates a black market right there.
Yep.
And then people don't educate their kids. I think it really comes down to not the government, not the businesses. I think it comes down to the parents, really. But I think as a community, we could do a better job of raising awareness for how to do things in a safer and more legitimate way, so that across the board we can start getting places like this that we can celebrate 420 and have a good time without having to worry about those type of issues.
Yeah. Well, one thing that the legal industry needs to address for sure is like turnover in their industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I've worked for several different dispensaries, and a lot of them are in for the big buck and not trying to treat their employees in a longevity standpoint. This is not a career. You're not offering them 401ks or even insurance, or
and part of that comes back up the chain to the fact that it's so expensive for them to maintain these businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And employees are at an all-time low morale and work ethic as a society right now. If you look across the board at restaurants, at customer service in general, people just don't care the way they used to, and they have more entitlement than ever before.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, I feel like cannabis has to pay so much extra tax and so much extra for every single thing because they're cannabis. And instead of everybody taking care of their family and their team, they just write everybody off as replaceable. And it trickles down the line. And as a culture, I think has some holes that need to be addressed and more.
Well, there are some really good companies out there. There's some really good teams that really do uplift their people, and they are very tight-knit, those companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other companies that are just recyclers. They just keep going through new people every day, and at a certain point, there's no longevity to our community like that, because people get burnt out and they don't want. I just saw a post on Instagram that was saying, like, when you get into the cannabis industry and then you have it on your resume, and if you want to try to get out of the cannabis industry, people just look at you like a black mark. Like you're like, oh, we don't want to get into this guy. He's been working with weed. It doesn't have anything to do.
It's happening to me right now. That's what I was going to try to circle back around is I see you doing your thing on YouTube and doing these different things, and every time I ask people, well, how do you navigate being shadow banned, and they all tell me you can't really, because it's you can only not really do it and just talk about it. You can't try to be flashy to draw people's attention. And unfortunately, in a place where it's legal, it's hard to draw people's attention by following the laws and regulations, because There's so many people getting away with so many things because they aren't taking it serious and they're trying to monetize. And a lot of times people tell me it means you're doing something right. And I think my advice over these last couple of weeks from asking, I feel like would be to not lead with cannabis. Like if you're always leading with cannabis, if you're always leading with plant medicine or trying to change and just lead with only cannabis, you're going to run into that being a target for you, you know? But if you also, like I've been using my puppy, like, well, I have a puppy. I can just use that. The algorithm loves puppies. You know what I'm saying? And put that in there. It just makes them see you. You can say whatever you want with videos, you know? So that's my advice, is to try to get more creative and try to see what other hobbies and interests you have as a cannabis connoisseur, as a cannabis influencer, whatever you call yourself, a YouTuber, whatever you're trying to do. I feel like we'll get a lot further if we start trying to show people our funny side, show people like the workouts we do, the positive things that we try to give back to our communities, not just talk about, you know?
Well, that's what you just said is it. I messaged you actually and said about start doing a short every day. And I've now, in the last 60 days, I've had more traction. I've halved my channel. I've doubled my channel, I should say.
Okay.
In this time last year, I only had 400 subscribers. Okay. Now I'm almost at 1,000. And
oh my gosh.
So by showing people my funny side, just by doing either a 15-second or a 60-second clip where I'm being high, being funny, like I saw some dude rolling sushi in the Midwest, and I made like a little 20-second clip about, I was like, where do they get these guys like rolling sushi in the middle of South Dakota, you know? Like they're importing them.
That's funny.
And that went for like over 5,000 views. Whereas like if I do a really educational, this is how I made Rick Simpson oil off of my rosin pucks, and it was 30-minute long of how to, you could do it yourself, a couple hundred views, or maybe even 30 views or something, you know? So it's like, yeah, by showing my funny side and even just less effort because I'm making a short versus like going through and editing the whole video, people like my attitude and me just being stoned more than.
So can I be honest with you? I tried the short thing to be consistent, and what knocked me off and what I actually have to work on is not getting knocked off when the internet doesn't like it. And like I said, following my own advice, because I can't, that's what I'm noticing, because I thought that the cannabis was getting me a lot of attention, but it's not what's getting me a lot of attention. It's just, I live in Colorado and I work at the cannabis bar. That's, to me, I think it's getting the attention, but it's not. Like, it's not. It's who I am. It's the things I'm talking about. It's that it's bringing it. So
it's your attitude.
Have to figure out how to do that and stop focusing. Everybody already knows we're smoking. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Know.
And just exactly what you said, like about even like growing. Like people don't want to watch somebody. There's a bunch of growing out there on YouTube, you know, like, but what are you doing different? How are you doing it differently? And, you know, you're absolutely right. But with the shorts, I've come through, like, go on analytics, and you can do it for Instagram too. Yeah. So you can go on the analytics and find out what's trending. And then if there's like a popular audio that's gone on 1 million shorts or whatever, then you can redub that. And that's like what I did today with the Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've never seen anybody do that one though. And I just remember seeing the Arnold Schwarzenegger clip a long time ago. He was smoking the stogie, and I was like, that'd be fucking funny. Yeah. So that's now kind of like what I'll do is when I'm sitting there smoking by myself is like I'll scroll through the feed and I'll save things that are popular that I see people doing. And I'm like, okay, like I can remix this in my own little twist and then get it going. And that's been getting a lot more traction than me trying to be educational.
Yeah. I like that. And I think that's what I'm going to try, because when I am consistent, I do really well at anything I try to do. And during COVID, they kind of let you do whatever you wanted as long as you weren't talking about conspiracy stuff. So like, as long as I wasn't voicing my stuff about that, which I have learned just in general in life not to talk about that stuff, because or just let people have their opinion and just be a listener about it instead of always giving my opinion, because I have to love people that have that opposing opinion too, and I get through it. So
well, dude, if you guys are, if anybody's listening to this and you're trying to be like a content creator, something you can keep in mind is don't be too concerned about like what you're creating. Like if you're passionate about something and you're like, man, I think people would watch it, just go for it. Press record, start filming yourself, and put it out there. And then listen to the feedback, because like I've gotten people who said like that video sucks or I don't like that at all, and you can take it if you have less likes than likes, that you can remove it, and they're like, okay, well that one didn't work, and I'm gonna go a different way with it. I'm gonna do something new and different, So yeah.
So how would you? What do you do differently from like Instagram to YouTube to shorts to actual videos? What kind of content have you noticed is better for each?
Okay, yeah. So that's the other thing where it's like start a consistency, whether it's like once a week on Monday or if it's every day or whatever. But then I just kind of went like the opposite of like I kind of felt like, all right, I'm gonna open up this YouTube mouth and like start cramming down information.
Mm-hmm.
So I would post 3, 4 any time I can get a second to post, I'll make a video and post it, and that has led to a measurable amount of success. And
Okay.
I think that in a sense it will piss off some people if you're getting on Instagram and you see this guy like 5 times in a day. Some people will like unfollow you, but you have to think about like the engagement. And if you hit 2 videos a day or 3 videos a day that 4 people send to their friends, all of a sudden your videos are getting traction. New people are coming in and liking your page, and
you're getting noticed by people that are noticing your consistency. Like just likes is not the best way to see, I feel, how you're going to go, especially if you are trying to do cannabis, because of issues like getting shadow banned and issues like restrictions on your account or this or that. Like it says you're moved to the bottom. Like,
yeah.
Well, if I'm moved to the bottom, I'm already at a disadvantage for these statistics right here anyways. So
yeah.
It's all about making more, because if you're at the bottom but you have more, most people are addicted to scrolling. So they get to the bottom. They still get there. A lot of people see your stuff because usually it's about triple to quadruple the amount of when I look at the insights of people that viewed it versus people that liked it, and whatever. And it's like 3 to 4 times more people that don't even engage with it or do anything, but they still see it.
They saw it. They just
even
didn't. They just didn't push the
shadow
button.
banning,
Yeah.
So it's like when you think of it that way, if you're doing that 3 or 4 times a day, over a month, it's gonna grow.
Well, also, and then engaging with other content creators. It's like I'm always trying to share somebody else's story or like somebody else's thing or get on somebody else's content and leave a comment. Because I understand as a content creator that when somebody likes my post and puts a comment on the post, even if it's just an emoji, that's going to help it in the algorithm. So then when I do that for you or any other content creator I know, and then they start sharing my post, and then people who they have that I didn't have, now get it. So
was my idea with starting a podcast in the first place. I was like, well, I don't have a budget really, so I'm just trying to start something that I don't even know what it quite is yet. How am I going to get the word out to find out what I need,
Yeah.
And I was like, well, a podcast can help you market, and then your guests, people can market, and it's much more valuable when I interview people that have the same interest in bringing people. Because some people just want to come on
and
to
chill.
talk and chill, and they just don't really have much to say. And when you do too much of that, it does turn people off, and you don't want to make spam. And that's another thing that the internet also hates, is when your account at all seems spammy.
Yes.
At all, because they don't want it to seem like you're trying to sell too much of anything, that they might not be regulating.
If I get somebody follows me or likes my post, and I'm engaged in my Instagram. So if somebody follows me, I usually follow them back, or I'll at least pull up their thing. But if I pull up your thing and you have 3 posts, I'm not gonna follow your account because it's probably like you've had this account forever, but you have 3 posts.
So I'm pretty intentional with the people I follow. A lot of people will be like, am I the 88th person you followed? And I'm like, no, I'm actually pretty intentional because I realize that there's a lot of junk accounts out there and a lot that get hacked anyways. So when I notice something that isn't aligned with what I'm doing, I unfollow that and I'm like, cool, I have an opportunity to follow someone new. Or if I have someone new to follow, I'm like, are they actually somebody that is going to just be telling me I'm cute or saying wow but never doing any, like, you know, I don't want that because that makes you look spammy and I'm not, I don't have time for that, because that's the next question I want to hit on is how do you find time, balance to make all of these videos and do all of this content all the time? Like, do you have a plan or do you just wing it when you're in the mood, or how do you do it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Mostly it's me getting obnoxiously high in the morning with coffee. And like, so it's like my waking up. I don't sleep for, I'm bipolar and I have mad insomnia. So I barely fucking sleep. So like 2 or 3 in the morning when I'm like, light bulb, like, oh, here we go, ready for the day. And I'll start smoking weed with coffee. And then I have a bunch of time before anything starts or opens, you know, so then I'm like, okay, well, cool, I'll make content. And then, but now I am taking it more seriously, and like I left my job at the dispensary that I'm at, and I'm going to try to start teaching classes at the local grow store, and then focus more on making content for
actually having time for your business that you're doing instead of, that's what I run into, is finding the balance between everything, because I'm also a mom, so I'm a little bit spread unevenly sometimes, but it's really finding the balance. If you really want to make it explode, you have to put in the time every day. You have to, and you say the morning's the best time. So how,
for me,
what, when you are trying to find, do you have guests or do you just do it all by yourself?
Or do you just, sorry, I'm chewing on ice here. No, I just started a kind of a podcast thing. YouTube has a podcast, and I just basically started doing like Canna News and putting it on my podcast channel. And that's just me doing like a screen recording basically with news up and talking about the articles I've read. And I've gone to do like a couple different tours at companies. So I did Epic Remedy in Colorado Springs. I went through 3 grow facilities with Epic Remedy and 3 dispensaries with them. And I did a grow facility in South Dakota too. It's called Dakota Natural Growers. And so I've got to do a couple tours. I was hoping to lock on Chiba Chews, but mostly it's just myself.
Okay, I like that. I like that because I don't always want to be a one-man show, but right now I am, just because I want to just be able to really dive into really showing people what all these things I've learned. And I'm learning from other people, but honestly, orchestrating interviews, I was really impressed with how you are not even from here and you were here on the 19th like you said you would be, because that's been my biggest struggle with. I do a hybrid podcast where I sometimes bring guests and sometimes I just talk by myself, because I have not been able to secure consistent interviews with people consistently enough to be consistent enough on the podcast how I want to be.
Yeah.
You know, so I have to sometimes just get on there and give tips. And sometimes I don't want to have longer podcasts. It has to be condensed and shortened, you know? So because people don't want to listen for so long. So, that's how I kind of wing it between the two, because I do think I like bringing guests on that like to talk about stuff like us. Like, I like to talk about your business and stuff about you. But today we talked about a bunch of things that we have in common of just viewpoints and things that we've seen and tried to, and I like to have those kind of conversations, and it takes getting to know somebody a little bit more to really be able to cultivate those conversations, I feel like.
Yeah. And one thing that you said earlier, though, is consistency. Mm-hmm. People do expect consistency, and even if it's just one time a week. If my buddy runs a barbecue shop on Western Colorado, and He's like, dude, on Wing Wednesdays, if I don't have my wing video out, they're like, where, people will be messaging them, FaceTiming them, like, hey, where's your fucking wing video, dude? So they want to know. And then if you do annoy some people because you're posting out a bunch of stuff, you're going to have a lot of people that like it. And then they're like, dude, I'm getting on to see Charlie Hempseed's shit, so like, what is he going to do today?
Yeah, and even the people that don't like you, they still will come back and check on you after they've unfollowed you. That's just how the world works. It's weird, but.
Yeah. Do we need to cut this?
Yeah, well, we will. We have about 10 minutes. So what I want to ask a couple questions. I would like to ask, you said you're from South Dakota, so you already did that. We talked about all this. What made you decide that you wanted to start doing this? Like, what did you do before, and how did you step out of that into more kind of, this sounds like you're in your purpose. So I like meeting people when they're already in it.
Yeah.
But I like giving hope to those that haven't quite figured out, how do I get from working at FedEx to being an influencer and making YouTube videos and doing things I love?
Yeah, that's great. I always knew that he was like, from a young age, growing those plants. Like the first time I saw a marijuana plant, it stopped my heart. Like I knew that. And then also, I didn't realize it until I was working late stage debt collections. I was 23 and I had a cubicle busting at the seams with all these different plants. And a lady moved to the other side of the cubicle and she came through and I was telling her all about my plants. I was like, this is this. And she was just like, look at you. And I said, what? And she's like, you're smiling from ear to ear right now. And I was like, dang, like, I guess I am, and I was just like, man, I love these fucking plants, and these are just like plants in my cubicle. And I went home for lunch and I was smoking a bowl and I put on Arjon, the King of Cannabis. They did Strain Hunters documentary on YouTube. And I'm watching Strain Hunters, I'm smoking, and I'm like, dude, fuck that job. I'm not going back, man. I was like, I'm going to go to college. Like, I'm going to go to college for weed growing. Because I was telling my friends in South Dakota that I was in California and I had a medical card and I was growing weed. I was like, you guys, we could do this. Like, come down here. We'll be weed growers, bro. We could just sell it to the shops. And they're like, yeah, right, Charlie. Like, come back home and get a real job. So that's what I did. And I hated it. And so that day I signed up for college. And even during that strive for what I wanted to do, I was managing a vineyard here at Bookcliff Vineyards in Colorado. I did that for almost 5 years. And growing grapes was never my goal. It was just like a step, right? And I was able to grow weed there. So that's really where the YouTube channel took off, because I was able to grow and I was able to outdoor grow and I started making hash. And then it was just like, man, like I knew it deep in my core that like, this is what I want. It's not, I'm not going to leave one day and be like, I'm not in the cannabis anymore. Like, this is what I'm going to do forever. And it's, if you know that, it doesn't have to be cannabis. You could want to chop wood for your life. Like, whatever that is. And none of my family was supportive of it when I started. Like, nobody in my family smokes weed. So it's okay to do something completely against the grain. Yeah.
Because it makes you happy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So tell people how they can follow you before we wrap up.
Yeah, definitely. On YouTube, it's Charlie Hempseed. On Instagram, it's Charlie Hempseed. And I'll have everything linked below in this description.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I'm excited for our part 2 tomorrow.
Oh, hell yeah.
So tune into that. I will probably do a little bit more living tomorrow because, it's the big day. Yeah. But thank you for tuning in. And as always, stay safe, stay high, and stay fly.